The broadcast is live, yes.
Yes, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Global Azure session being brought to you by Gimme Cloud Talks. We have a great session here over the next 45 minutes to an hour. We have Uros, is it Babic?
Yes.
Providing us with a session on Active Directory incident response and remediation in Microsoft Azure. So I think this should be a really good session. Uros is an MCT and a cybersecurity manager, so knows a lot about security and incident response, I would assume. So looking forward to hearing this session. And the floor is yours, Uros. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you for, firstly, hi everyone, and welcome to my presentation. Thanks to organizer who invite me to the Global Azure Conference and Gimme Cloud Talks. And I'm very proud to be part of this Global Azure Conference today. The subject of my presentation is Active Directory incident response and remediation in Microsoft Azure. Why is important this topic? Because the Azure Active Directory incident response methodology is essential and the critical life cycle process and tools that anyone using identities on Microsoft Azure Cloud or Office 365, for example, and third-party cloud can count on. Azure Active Directory Incident Response explores how Azure Active Directory investigates, how we manage, how respond to security breaches and security incidents with the incident management process and the life cycle. It involves some skills, knowledge, and experience to protect Azure Active Directory. Actually, we have the 5 stage of process presented and hence evolved over the years and continues to do so. So, first of all, let me introduce myself. Firstly, as you can see, Dwayne, I'm graduated electrical engineering, and currently I am working in a Serbian oil company, and I'm also working as a Microsoft certified trainer and a Linux instructor in SEMAS education company. Actually, I have 2 positions, and this is scope, as you can see, of the first slide, what I doing, and I am also involved in many other processes, InfoSec community and migration, cloud, on-premise service in the cloud, and many other processes and projects like DevOps, DevSecOps, and etc. That is shortly about me, and in the next slide you can see the agenda of this presentation. I will talk about Azure Cloud Security Challenge because the cyber attack is most sophisticated now in the cloud, and we have more and more challenge, and definitely that is a challenge next period of time, and most important how we protect Azure Active Directory, and of course incident response management process with preparation, detection and analysis, containment, eradication, recovery, custom notification of security incidents, and post-incident activity. That is the 5 stage, and after that I will describe Azure Active Directory incident management lifecycle process. We will talking about Azure platform logs and Azure Active Directory incident response with the best practice and how we remediate it in with the point of view incident response. I will talk with just-in-time virtual machine access. That is very important topics. Adaptive security control, application whitelisting, file integrity monitoring, and incident response playbooks. Of course, most important thing and very important is Azure Office 365 incident response tool, and how we dealing with lots of different tools, and how we investigate incident with the Microsoft Sentinel full cloud-based security event management solution. And finally, at the end of this presentation today, I will talk about the cloud visibility and cloud security tools groups like Cloud Access Security Broker, how we define the workload in protection platform, and the cloud security posture management, definitely. Okay, we can start with the Azure Cloud Security Challenge. I mentioned collaboration between different security event incident response team and the security operations center in many incident is very important. It depends of the type of wide and scope of the incident. But I mentioned cloud resource provisioning and deprovisioning more quickly. What means that? Cloud provisioning is allocation of cloud provider resources to service to the customers. And cloud provision we can define as a key feature of the cloud computing models and related how the customer procures many cloud service and resources from the cloud provider. And in the first of self-provisioning, in which the cloud consumer fills out online and requests the service for the cloud provider and set cloud resource from the customer. What is the provisioning? For example, that is the act of removing some user access to the application, system, and data with the network as a part of lifecycle management. Actually, when you're talking about the cloud provisioning, we have three models. The first is advanced model, when we customers sign the formal contract with the cloud provider. In second case, customer can purchase some cloud resource based off average some consumption needs. And finally, we have a user self-provisioning model, when customers select cloud resources and everything services via some web interface. For example, shortly after purchase, or customer pays for the service with some credit card with a flat fee or monthly bill. And that is how we describe some cloud provisioning in many different model. We are facing, for example, before 3 months, I remember there was a global Azure networking outage, and it affect us work too. And so how we any organization using Azure prepare for these issues and or outage? Definitely, disperses cloud strategy in large organization is very we see now currently, and we also keep track, for example, with the Azure status, set up Azure to get alerts, set up alerts for example, Azure mobile application. We can detect and configure your Azure action groups, for example. We can use backup development with the Azure Traffic Manager for this purpose. Automatic backups is failover groups, and geo-replication is very important for cloud database and Azure SQL and Azure management instance. You can make use of Azure support, of course, but you can implement backup and disaster recovery strategy for your Azure application and resources as a part of web application firewall resiliency in the cloud, for example. That is one of feature how we skip these issues and outage. And from incident response perspective, we should be some definitely incident response plan and detect monitoring and response security incidents that affect application architecture, for example, components under their responsibility. But most important thing, the customer must be signed some non-disclosure agreement in the place between cloud service provider to ensure they can manage cybersecurity incidents with some responsibility. Is there some mutual NDA between the client and cloud service provider, for example? Does the cloud service provider have a relevant certificate in the series of ISO 27,000 series of standard, including some 2717 or risk management standard? Is the encryption or confidential business data in transfer with application? How is complete data restoration, disaster functionality, for example? Do you have some exit strategy between define and how we specify the procedure in incident response process to be ensured with the business continuity in case some cloud service unavailability and compromise and incident in the cloud? Definitely with problem with how we describe the SIA triad, but definitely cloud service, for example, unavailability for more than one working day. And that is how we the storage some credential hash registry data if the cloud provider is compromised. In event we have incident in some location for the cloud service and everything. That is many issues from the cloud incident response perspective, but visibility and control challenge is very important because cloud visibility is some ability to have some detailed view of all activity in our Azure cloud. It means you can, for example, detect security threat and some performance in cloud deployment. But one main benefit moving in this cloud is scalability. But the scaling comes with a lot of risk. If your organization, for example, increase capacity, you will have more infrastructure to monitoring. That is a consequence. And in addition, you'll be bound, for example, to face security challenge. And that is important. And as you can see of the next slide, we have the shared responsibility. We have, I mentioned, visibility in control. We have more and more sophisticated attack from incident response perspective. I will talking during the next slides about that. And compliance, for example, security skills are in short supply, definitely, but compliance with regulatory compliance with security standard and regulation. You have, for example, different standard with the field of 27, for example, 30 7 guide for collecting, detecting, and preserving electronic evidence in the chain of custody. Guide for example, incident response investigation, that is 41. And 42, we have a digital evidence analysis and finally, very important is 2743, for example, incident investigation principle and process. And finally, we have overview and principle of e-discovery, that is in 2715 show. And of course, all methodology, many of this methodology is based on the NIST 800 and definitely 32 version 2, 34, sorry, version 2. That is how we describe, in my case, for example, in my organization-based incident management process. And of course, we have compliance with the regulation I mentioned, and industry standard security skills is very hard to attract, to retain. Loss of control is very important, but moving regulation control in our organization. For example, it's no longer to own data center on which your data resides, but you can also don't control for the network that your data run through. The loss of control could lead to loss of visibility. We have the shared responsibility model I show in this slide, and many organizations rely of software as a service delivery model for the cloud application to manage core business functionality and requirements, including, for example, web app, OAuth application, communication with the point of view identity and access management. And those applications are considered, for example, by threat actors as high value targets that may contain some confidential data, for example, personal identifiable information, supplier data, customer data, financial business data, etc. And very, very important how we describe and understand the shared responsibility model for cloud application, because that is critical for many organizations to develop and effective strategy in responding to security incidents affecting some software as a service cloud application. An important platform is definitely identity. And in the software as a service model, consumer is responsible for the security of data, endpoints, accounts, access rights, identity management, and other components are responsibility for the cloud provider. And we are definitely have incident response management process. You can see of this slide. Microsoft Online, for example, service security teams and service teams working together and take the same approach to security incident, which is based on the I mentioned NIST 861 version 2 response management phase. In the first phase, we have preparation. What means it refers to organization preparation that is needed to be able to respond, including many different tools, how we detect and analyze all events to confirm some authentication of security incident. In detection and analysis, we have activity to detect security incidents in production environment and analyzes all events to confirm authentication of security incident. In containment, eradication, and recovery phase, we refers to required definitely an appropriate action taken to contain security incident based of analysis done in the previous phase. More analysis may also definitely be necessary in this phase to full recovery from the security incidents. And post-incident activity refers to post-mortem analysis performed after recovery of security incidents, and operation action performed during the process and review in the any change to be made in preparation of in detection and analysis process. I mentioned preparation actually have 3 stages. We have training and background check. We have penetration testing and assessment, and we have in the 3rd stage attack simulation, for example, red team, blue team, and joint exercises. But preparation enable a rapid response when the security incident occurs in may even prevents incident in the first place. Azure dedicates its significant resources to prepare security incidents, and organization using many Azure services should provide employees with the training regarding security incident and response procedure appropriate to their role and responsibility. That is very important in this phase, and every employee should be receiving training upon joining an annual refresh training every year. And training should be designed to provide the employee with the basic understanding organization approach to security. Upon the completing of training, all employee understand what is definition of security incident, what is responsibility, how we escalated the incident, how find more information about security and privacy and escalation contact, and other relevant area, any change made of the standard operation procedure with the appropriate employee. And of course, we have any other security focus areas, for example, the digital forensic toolkit, how we defined and in this phase, and with the point of view exercises and everything, it's very important. Penetration testing based over top 10, lot of vulnerability assessment with different vulnerability tools in order to find vulnerability, and after that we have a remediation this vulnerability, continuous system vulnerability testing, and of course we have from Microsoft very important online service bug bounty program. And I mentioned read blue activity, and of course many joint exercises in this field. And we have in detection analysis the central system for that is security event management system. For example, Sentinel is full cloud-based solution for that. You can see on this slide this functionality, how we describe the central log, security events, and other data, how we have a lot of security analysts to find anomaly and suspicious activity, risk approach to detecting malicious activity, and of course notification alerts with the CM detection and human analysis and workload detection. And other sources, but we have also escalation with federated security analysis and HAN fines, workload team fines, and partner team fines. That is 4 groups. And of course, security incident, how we monitoring all possible attack vector, how we analyze the incident of known data, threat intelligence system, standardized incident documentation, and definitely we have a lot of challenges in this phase, but when the potential incident is detected, the process should be escalated with the preliminary severity rating. Security response team should be responsible, for example, for analysis and detection indicators to determine whether the security incident is occurred and just the severity level and category is needed. If any points of security incident team discover, if data is disclosed, for example, modified and destroys, the team should initiate security notification process. That is very important. And at the beginning of the investigation, some third team should record all information relevant to the incident continuous improvement unmentioned, but relevant information have summary of the incident, recommend next steps and action, list related incidents, list of indicator of compromise, what is severity and what is priority of based on potential impact and everything. And it is necessary to have some initial stage of incident process and based on small amount of incident and everything. In containment phase, we have definitely primary goal of containment is to limit harm to system, to application, to the customer, and customer data. During this phase, the security response team should work with affected services teams to limit the impact of security incidents and prevent further damage. Azure, all automated response solution in this phase with Azure should help the third team contain the incident, and that is involve many prevention in the further spread of incident and implement short term, for example, protection for the original data about the incident from change, system backup, creating forensic image using appropriate forensic tools, stopping part of services, and long-term protection based, for example, how we isolate affected services or device or system from the corporate network. Is very important to use some source solution, security orchestration and automatic response, shutting down the user account and installing security patches in the system, removing system from the network compromise, shutting down the system, switching the system maintenance mode. We have contact with the provider about that, monitor network traffics for advice, for example, contact with the public authority. It's about case regulated by law, maybe is incident with the chain custody process, and we involve also law enforcement organization in this phase. Eradication, but of course, I forgot to mention, we have some audit service principal, credential, permission, and replay with the URL. We are working with the conditional access rule in audit in Microsoft Azure, hunt for suspicious synchronized account login, sign in for service principal, hunt for service principal access user mailbox. That is sixth example how we dealing with containment in the Azure incident response methodology. And of course, we have, I mentioned eradication. Eradication is a process of eliminating the root cause of security incident with a high degree of confidence. Actually, goal of eradication is to evict some adversary completely from the environment, to mitigate vulnerability if no this vulnerability that enable the cloud, enabled an adversary to maintain some environment. And we have fourth stage in that propose by removing the cause, for example, of incident processing. The cause of incident is eliminated and restored with the standard operation procedure and functionality as a part of ICT system. It is necessary to restore the standard functionality of all hosts affected during the incident. And that is important. Firstly, we eliminated the root cause of security incident. After that, we recovery affected host servers, removing malicious softwares, and mitigate vulnerability I mentioned, or could enable some adversary to re-enter some environment. And we have recovery. Recovery is a key aspect of and we have enhanced diligence and control to place to validate some recovery plan that has been successfully executed and no sign to breach existing environment. And the key aspect of recovery process is enhanced detection control to validate recovery plan, and has been successfully executed that no sign breach, for example, remain with the environment. Increased level, network level monitoring, targeting alert for the critical resources and service, and monitoring helps us, for example, in Azure to ensure the eradication was successful and adversary unable to re-enter an environment. In this phase, affected system is returned to production. System recovery, for example, accepted or adopted some patches after installation, and the installation of application and key files, change password, return files, for example, from backup copy, backup and restore procedure, and change to access control list and compromises networking system as a part of ICT system, and determination incident. Definitely, we must stop the harmful effect of the incident, repair consequence of the incident, stop its service start, monitor performance affected part of incident response process, and perform vulnerability scan using available scanning tools. Of course, we have how we even start, how is detected, on-call engineer engaging, the security response team engaging, how incident confirm, how customer impact determinate, and affected customer determined with, of course, affected customer notification. And that is part is very important, because after we define and detect all affected tenants in Microsoft Azure, the corresponding communication team works to detect any relevant regulation that might apply to affect tenants. And with appropriate communication channel, and include detailed information about incident, such description of incident and effect to customer data. We have the fourth stage, the post-incident activity. Post-mortem is very important, but after the incident, for example, has been resolved, select security incident, especially customer impact of resulting in data breach, full incident post-mortem is very important. How we document sequence of events, how we create technical summary, which include responsibly and as was executed, other key takeaways. How we detect technical procedure, manual errors, process faults, and communication, and any previously unknown attack vector that were detected during the security incident response process. We have documentation with the report and fix the form of bugs, and we have process improvement. is this decision definitely for management to have to involve law enforcement in chain of custody process, log and tracked in internal Microsoft engineering database, and lesson learned after incident is very, very important. And we have, of course, root cause analysis. Azure Service help provide official incident reports and root cause analysis. For example, we must establish timeline of incident during and correlation of event of incident and graphic representation that timeline with key cause of the incident. That is a timeline incident activity, and that is very, very important in root cause analysis. Because root cause analysis, the person of the charge of incident, for example, analyzes what lead to the incident. The method is used for analysis root cause to detect the cause to the lead for the incident. We are talking issues in that way. Correlation of events during the incident I mentioned, and we have graphic representation of the key cause of the incident. And finally, we have life cycle. That is very important thing. As you can see of this slide, we have data sources, how we analyze our logs, and definitely we have cloud application security, some Microsoft Defender for Identity, Active Directory. We collect log for third-party identity management application, security graph application, and we collect logs, and we are using incident response tool in that way in order to protection our assets. Cloud application security, Defender for Identity is very important in that way. Defender for cloud and Defender for endpoint, and we collect logs, for example, for on-premise infrastructure in our cloud security event-based solution like Microsoft Sentinel. We discover, determine decision action, we detect and identify. We have contain or any disruption this incident, and we reduce, we destroy. In eradication phase, we are using this digital forensic tools in how we detect and identify incident, and we have a lesson learned after that. Communication with the digital report and investigation feedback is very important, and of course in a remediation we can reset all privileged account, all services and points. We can rotate Azure key and replace secret. We can audit service principal, credential, and URL in that propose, and that is very, very important. And I mentioned in agenda because we have a lot of different Azure platform logs. Actually, we have the first stage. We have resource logs to provide into operation where we perform with the Azure resource. Resource logs are previously referred for the diagnostic logs, and we have activity log with when we define our based of our Azure subscription model. In activity log, we determine who, what, and when for the right operation. For the put, for example, post and delete taken REST subscription, and based our Azure tenant, we analyze this Azure Active Directory or Azure AD logs to contain history of activity and audit trail of change made for Azure Active Directory. And For example, who gave access for in admin groups. We defined also different use case in that proposed list of users to sign in application, how many password accessing happening in my tenant, for example. That is very important. And with the Office 365 logs, we have record activity from the various applications in Office 365. We define the data retention policy, and we also have mailbox audit logs from Microsoft Exchange Online. Attacker on internet, you use port scanning to discover there are public IP listening to the managed port, and then he could be used for brute force attack to your jump box, for example. Take control for virtual machine and establish foothold into environment and perhaps have access to other virtual machine you have in Azure. And that is how we describe, because you have open port attacker via RDP or SSH have communication and access to the public IP. What is solution? How we resolve these issues? How we protect our Microsoft Azure? With just in time, you can lock down the inbound traffic for your virtual machine, reduce exposure of attack. We provide easy access to connect virtual machine. For example, allow my IP for 3 hours. I define my network security groups in Jambox and rules to take priority of the new DENI all inbound port rules. If there are no existing rules on selecting port, then we have new rules to top priority in the network security group and Azure firewall. And definitely security center ensure DENI all inbound ports rule exist in your select ports, and in the network security group in Azure firewall rules I mentioned. And that is very important. And in the next slide, you can see I create some virtual machine bastion, and I enable just in time on my virtual machine. Recommend, for example, two. One is the Windows and the other is the Linux virtual machine. And for example, I define port and protocol to allow source IP, and I define my just-in-time virtual machine access configuration that way with in this example 33889 port, and I add port configuration, and after that I allow my IP address with IP range threat protection request access from my virtual bastion machine. Firstly, I must create virtual machine, and with the Defender for Cloud in option Advanced Cloud Defense, I select the port and would like to open from my virtual machine. As a consequence, I definitely have with the time range, with the IP range, and allow source IP with my virtual machine. And we have many problem in implementation. For example, I'm talking now in the field of remediation in Microsoft Azure, but adaptive security control. For example, attacker developing a new malware, security vendor try to detect them, and we have definitely unauthorized application in that way. I mentioned implementation on whitelisting mechanisms to limit exposure for malicious and vulnerable application is very important, because we comply with our organization security policy, and avoid unwanted and unsupported software to be used in our environment to prevent specific software tools. And in this slide, that is example of application whitelist, because I allow all Microsoft in application whitelisting rule, but I detect with Adobe, for example, application alerts and violation audit with that is not compliant with my policy because application control policy violation was audited. And that is very, very good example, for example, application whitelisting. Also, very important control, for example, with the many situation is file integrity monitoring when we examine files and registry for change, for example, operation system files, Windows registry, application software, Linux system files for change, and file integrity monitoring using Azure change tracking solution to detect change in your environment. When is file integrity monitoring enabled? You have change tracking. You can see on this slide with a lot of information with the type solution. If you remove the change tracking resource, you also be disabled file integrity monitoring in Azure. That is very important. And file integrity monitoring take advantage of the change tracking directly in Defender for Cloud. Defender for Cloud recommend entity to monitoring and also defined our own policy to enter the monitoring and informs about suspicious activity, file and registry key creation or removal. For example, in this example, I have some file, and after that I present some 100 change in that proposal, and I have different category for added, modified, remove, and different type of registry function, file and registry key creation or removal, file modification, change in file size, access control list, for example, hash of the context, registry modification, change in size, access control list type and context. I mentioned for the PCI DSS is very, very important, and we can use Azure this solution for that purpose. Incident response playbooks for we are using for different type attack. You need to respond, for example, quickly to detect attack, to contain and to remediate damage, and widespread cyber attack happen. Example is Nobelium and Exchange server vulnerability in the last year is very good example how Microsoft respond with that incident response guidance in that proposal with phishing, password spraying, application contents grant, compromise and malicious application. All playbooks include the fourth stage. The prerequisite in that proposal logging should be turned for door roles and permission, workflows, checklist, investigation steps with a step-by-step guidance for the specific investigation. And you can see on this Microsoft link, I share presentation, of course, with the organizer, and you can using this slide. And of course, we have a lot of different incident response tools. I have 11 minutes. I have more quickly and fast in explanation. But for example, it's very interesting. Azure Active Directory Investigator PowerShell module provides a number of tools developed by directory product groups in conjunction of Microsoft Detection and Response DAR team. We can use PowerShell module, for example, Azure Active Directory version 2, a general ability module, we have in that report using HEC, PowerShell best tool for gathering information related to Office 365, intrusion and potential breach. Azure Active Directory internals is very power tool and PowerShell modules where we have tried to put knowledge we have gained during the years spent Office 365 and Azure Active Directory, but result of hours of reverse engineering and debug of Microsoft tools such as PowerShell modules, directory synchronization, for example, admin portal. Module is a plan to PowerShell script module, and you can copy and paste the code of own scripts, and you can use functionality in build of Windows. Everything might not work in every, but definitely is very important. Plan PowerShell script module for incident response investigation. We have definitely a lot of tools like Exchange Online, like CISA Sparrow and CrowdStrike, Sentinel detection, Azure Hound, Azure Active Directory incident response, Azure Hunter, for example, is PowerShell module. You can run threat hunting playbooks of data from Azure and Office 365 for cloud forensic purpose. And we have definitely a lot of different tools in that way. Sentinel, I mentioned how we investigate incidents in the Microsoft Sentinel. After you connected your data sources to Microsoft Sentinel, you can warn. You can notify something suspicious happens. You have 3 stage in that reports with investigate incident, with the use investigation graph, and respond to threats. You just select incidents, and incident page let you know how many incidents you have in that proposal. You have option for the active and close, and you can filter incident is need. For example, status severity. To begin investigation, select some specific incident and map it with the MITRE attack techniques and procedure. To view more details, you can view details for incident page and review relevance. Timeline tabs, for example, other tabs, bookmark tabs. Finally, you can use comment tabs in that proposal. And use investigation graph on the deep dive is very important. Visualization context of the raw data, for example, built investigation steps and full investigation scope discovery in that proposal is very. But our focus is for investigation, and that is very powerful security event management tool in that proposal. And finally, Gartner came mainly with the 3 different cloud solution tools, which will cover most every threat in cloud security known. That is the first, Cloud Access Security Broker. What is the main reason? How to protect my sensitive data before I send in the cloud. I defined some adaptive security control for that proposal. In the second stage, I defined DLP policy and policy, for example, for malware investigation. But Cloud Access Security Broker, Gartner definitely defined CASB are on-premise and the cloud-based security policy enforcement points placed between cloud service consumer and cloud service provider to combine enterprise security policy I mentioned, and how we consolidate multiple types of security policy enforcement is very important. As example of this security policy include authentication, single sign-on, authorization, credential mapping, device profiling, encryption, tokenization, logging, alert, malware investigation and prevention. And you have a lot of different use cases for that proposed for visibility, involves some cloud detection, risk assessment, audit trail for forensic investigation. And you can use, for example, cloud workflow platform. You can define workflow-centric security protection mechanism, endpoint protection, system monitoring, application control whitelisting, integrity monitoring unmentioned in the previous slide, but they address unique requirements to server workload protection, for example, in modern hybrid data center architecture that and you can use some virtual machine, multiple public cloud infrastructure and service infrastructure as a service environment, and that is very, very good for super container based application architecture with Docker and Kubernetes. In other words, this solution provides a cloud-based security solution, how we protect instance on Amazon Web Service, for example, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and other cloud security vendor. And we can use in that propose many other cases, but how we detect risk configuration settings and provide visibility in the current security posture with the cloud environment, how we recognize and log change, who made, how we help to detect accidental situation, and operate. We have actually compliance assessment, risk identification, operation monitoring, and threat protection. Gartner model for the cloud access security broker software as a service, and this solution, cloud security posture management, help us to gain, for example, visibility and control over our infrastructure workload in order to protect, in order to detect and respond many different solution and security incident in that way. And or, for example, successful attack on the cloud services, especially in Azure, are a result of customer misconfiguration, mismanagement, and mistakes. The human factor is the weakest link in cybersecurity. We know that. And that is my conclusion of this presentation. But security and risk management leaders definitely should invest in cloud security posture mechanism, process, and tools to proactively detect and remediate many security risk in issues. System hardening, vulnerability management, network firewalling, microsegmentation, system integrity monitoring, and application whitelist, anti-malware scanning solution, exploit prevention, memory protection. That is definitely behavior analytic and monitoring. That is definitely feature and challenge how you protect for the security branch. Of course, in our case, Active Directory incident response with the point of view security. That is all from my presentation. Thank you for joining with me for this presentation today, and I am responsible.
Yeah, that's so funny that I'm just adding in.
Hold on. Sorry.
And I'm, of course, willing to for answer for your question. Definitely, you have any question from incident response perspective. That is definitely all from my side.
All right. Thank you, Uros. Appreciate it. There are a couple questions in the chat, but we got to move on to another session. But Uros, if you could go into maybe YouTube and answer those questions for those comments. Everything is in. If you go to Captain Hyperscaler in YouTube, that is where we're live. So, and respond to a couple of those questions. So, thank you very much for your time, Uros, and appreciate the presentation. Thanks everybody who attended and provided feedback. And have a great day, everybody.
Have a great day also. Have a nice day. Bye bye.